guys, this is Lauren Hollows, and we are continuing with our discussion with Sally Tansley and Brooke Lombard from RTO Works. I hope you guys have checked out part one. We will link to that in the show notes below. But what we were going to be discussing, what we finished on, was why I guess RTOs do struggle with compliance, even more so they struggle with quality. So, how do you approach this? What do you see as the biggest challenges for RTOs? And I guess, covering all of the bases as you guys kind of do, how does RTO Works approach that kind of, support, development sort of strategy when it comes to building RTO's capacity, first for compliance and then, for quality?
Sally,
did you want to take that, Brooke, or me?
You take the compliance aspect. I'll take the other aspect.
I suppose when you say that, Lauren, I kind of feel like RTOs are so focused on the threat and the fear of the regulator that all the efforts can be put into that and not thinking about what this is actually all about, which really, it should be about the student and their journey and their education. And so, for example, last week I was in Sydney visiting clients, and I was really happy to go to one client who discussed that and how that went. They were there to talk about what was the most engaging way of doing structured self-study. So that was really interesting, and I was so happy to hear that being discussed. So yeah, I think that sometimes there's an over focus on the fear of the regulator.
And there's got to be that balance between, how it looks on paper and that compliance aspect, and how usable, everything is, and how engaging this is. So I suppose that's in the development side of it for us. I mean, I'm a good instructional designer. I would consider myself to be a poor trainer. I don't think I'd be, training's not my thing. Creating training documents is my thing. And so those are two very different skills or strengths. So if we look at traditionally how RTOs used to rely a lot on their trainers to create the training resources, that can be one of the reasons I believe that RTOs have struggled with compliance and quality, because although the trainers may be doing an amazing job of training that, and it makes sense the way they've documented it from a compliance perspective, it just doesn't, go into enough detail. So I suppose by having a broad range of team members in our team, we have such a huge pool of knowledge and resources to help our clients, and we put our clients in touch with the right people. So if they've got a question about training and assessment, quality or review, that's not going to our consultant. Usually that'll go to our head of quality in our training department. So we put our clients in touch with the right people to answer the right question. And because we have a large pool of people with different strengths and skills, I believe that, we try and be our RTO's partners. And that's what our membership is all about. We partner with you to help you with your quality so that you can focus on running a really great RTO, and we can help you make sure your compliance side is covered.
Yeah. I mean, it's akin to like building a house. You've got one person who designs the house, you've got your architecture who kind of designs it and thinks through the layout and writes up all the plans. And then you've got the person who actually builds the house. You've got, so you've got your, it is two completely different skill sets, designing training resources versus actually delivering them. I mean, almost totally different personalities, go to that process. And I think the new TAE probably reflects that the best that we've seen, over the course of the years. That's probably a whole other discussion.
That's a whole other discussion.
A whole other discussion. And so do you think that RTOs are starting to have a better focus now on the quality component, not just on compliance? Do you see that starting to come through more?
I see it from the resource side. Oh, sorry, you go, Sally.
No, carry on, you, Brooke.
No, from the resource side, I definitely see it. People want, that's why when we create, you know, it's user friendly, and trainers need to love using our product. Students need to love being trained by our product. Compliance managers need to love our product, and ASQA auditors need to view our product as compliant. So it goes through that level of review when we review it with all our different hats on to make sure, you know, this might be compliant. It might be boring as hell. Who wants to read a 100-page learner guide? Not any modern day student that I know wants to read that. So
you won't keep them. You just won't keep them anymore.
Exactly. And who watches, you know, a 20-minute or 1 hour video? Nobody. They watch 4-minute videos, even maybe 1-minute videos. So yeah, from our perspective, we put a lot of energy into that. And I'll let Sally speak to the compliance side.
Something that I just sprung to my mind then is that how compliance can also deaden quality, so to speak. So one of the areas that I'd love to see reformed is regarding the national code. So of course the national code requires international students to attend 20 hours a week, and that can be made decrease because you can do the, you know, the blended model, the you know, the 14.6 or the 15.5 or 16.4. But I feel that the national code doesn't reflect the modern learner, and I feel that that's perhaps one of the reasons why we do have these issues around attendance and so on, because the modern learner probably will do better with a day in a classroom and then online interactive activities to do in their own time. And I know there's issues there around, of course, visas and the reasons that students come and so on, but I think reform of the code would help. And yet I think it's sometimes that sort of balance between compliance and business operations and quality, it makes things quite tricky at times as well. But one thing that I do really try to do with my clients is to give them the capability to be able to excel at compliance. So it's giving them the knowledge they need, because knowledge is power at the end of the day. So the more you know, the better. And so when the client doesn't need me anymore or only infrequently, well, then I know I've succeeded.
Absolutely. And I was speaking to Nick from Easy Train Now earlier today, and we mentioned the same thing. We were like, you know, one of the marks of a good consultant is not that they want to embed themselves so heavily in the day-to-day operations of your organization, but that they are invested in educating and upskilling the whole organization to over time be able to pull themselves out of it to a point that maybe you're going in on a monthly or a quarterly or a 6 monthly to do that check-in and make sure that everything's up to date, and maybe provide some PD on, you know, when big changes come out, as we're going to see across next year, but not that they need to be there running the operations day to day. You know, it's always concerning when you see that, and anytime we've had to go in and like rescue anyone, it's always been that, like, the last consultant was like, we didn't really we weren't told why we had to do this, we were just told that we had to do it. I was like, oh really? Like, oh, education.
And we work more on a project base as well with our clients, so we'll do large or smaller projects for them rather than the retainer model. So we find that works, because we can work on a project, help them roll it out, help them, and if they come back and need some help, then we can just, you know, help them in the areas they need help, and when they need us again, they come back and let us know. So that's kind of the model we work with consulting.
And I mean, obviously, as we said, there are a lot of changes that are going to be coming out over the next year. We've had, you know, as of 1/1/24, we're going to have the changes to fit and proper person. You know, 1/1/25, the new standards are going to roll out with all of the new social, emotional well-being requirements. I'm interested to hear, Sally, what your thoughts are on, with the new standards, what you think the impact is going to be on RTOs. Can you share your thoughts on that?
I still see some issues in the new standards that will create problems. I guess the idea is that they're more prescriptive, but we still have words like appropriate. And I still think there are areas in the standards that will cause problems. Obviously the idea is that they were supposed to remove some of the issues that the existing standards have. But, well, Lauren, you and I have both been in this industry for a long time, things...
I was the guppy though when you were the big fish. I was just a guppy when you were already a big fish in the pond.
I've been through the AQTF, the NVR standards for RTOs, and here's the next lot. Well, no one. It's always good for things to be better, but it's tough, isn't it? It's tough. New processes all have to be introduced. There'll be new issues created. It's like I used to be on the training package quality assurance panel until it was taken in-house by DWA. And sometimes as well, when you read things initially, such as units of competence, you can't actually see that until you're working on a deep level with it. And because I often feel that people who write these documents are bureaucrats, they're not the end users, and so they don't cite the problems that will be perhaps there at the end. So I'm the jury's out from my perspective.
We shall see.
What do you think, Lauren?
I think it's going to be interesting. We haven't seen the credential policy yet. So obviously for me, that's a big one. I'm really keen to cast my eye over what the credential policy is going to look like. I like the idea of having to make sure that you're upskilling everyone in the organization. I also like the idea of having to monitor student progression more. It's certainly something that we see when we go and start to look at data is just the amount of RTOs that, have students sitting in the system that have really been, dead, like not actually dead, but, they've been non-active for 2 years and they're still sitting there in the system. I think the social emotional well-being component, while well-intentioned, is going to be a very challenging area for RTOs.
I think so.
We have a young group of learners that are not socially emotionally well. To move that, we've already had to now. We have to take on a lot of the LLN issues from cohorts. To have to also take on the social emotional well-being of learners on top of their LLN, on top of actually training them skills. I think that's a really big ask. And certainly I don't see any funding models that actually allow an RTO to do that at the moment. So I think that's going to be a very big challenge.
Yeah. And from an operational perspective, Lauren, as well, I mean, businesses have just come out of COVID. We're in a cost of living crisis. And now RTOs have to go and spend, a lot of money on getting this implemented and doing it right, more consulting fees, purchasing.
The trainer costs are skyrocketing. You're paying, $50, $60 an hour for a business trainer nowadays, for a retail trainer, and not to belittle business and retail trainers, but when you're having to pay such high rates, if you're having to pay even more than that for your trades trainers or some of your mining trainers, it's a huge cost for RTOs, huge cost for them.
Definitely. And now to purchase new policies, spend money on training, getting, rolling them out in the organization, consultants having to, assist in all of this. So yeah, I'm feeling really sorry for RTO clients who, it's not a great time, I suppose, for this all to happen just off the back of COVID.
Yeah. And I think that's a really great place to pause because I'm going to switch things up a little bit when we get back, guys. I'm Lauren for Aniwaya, and I've obviously got Brooke and Sally here from RTO Works. We're going to be putting all of their details below, so please keep watching this series. You can find out and see the links to both of the other videos in the comments section below. Otherwise, we will see you guys right back here in just a few minutes.